Okay, ladies and gentle dudes, I'll be going live on the radio in a few minutes. It's still a little cold here in Japan, so I'm all bundled up. But once I get into the radio show, I'll probably take off some layers because I always get hot. So right now I'm talking to Lucy Diamond on Skype, and she's gonna call me. And this is where you guys go. This link, where did it go? Here, listen now, Gemjin Radio. And click this button. Supposedly this is live, but I don't know. I keep hearing the same commercials.
Put the science behind the power of positive thinking in your hands. Order this truly
positive thinking. So I'm live on Gemjin Radio.
And while you're there, check out the Reader's Blog. That's www.ordainingreality.com.
What's good? This is G.O.D. Here to congratulate all of this year's prom princesses and prom princes. Let me remind you once, there's nothing cool about being kept alive by machines when you're stupid. Don't drink and drive, period. Ever. Keeping it real with you, rocking on. From all of us at Gemjin. Keep your family and your crew safe.
I hope my battery doesn't wear out. I can't find my plug. Okay, we're ready to go. Stand by. 10 minutes and counting. Hello.
Hi Tim, how are you?
Great. Let me pause the radio show here. Okay. Everything is good.
Good, good. Now, are you calling in from? Well, actually, where are you calling in? You're calling in from Japan.
Japan, yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, what part of Japan?
The back side of Japan. Some people in the front side call it the butt side of Japan. It's.
Now, was that anywhere near where the tsunami hit?
No, that's the opposite side. So we're on the opposite side of the Japanese Alps.
Well, very good. And, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea on the show, okay, I start off with a bit of a monologue, just kind of about the show.
Okay.
And then I typically kind of morph it into a subject matter that is somewhat relevant to to the guest. And then I introduce the guest. And that usually takes about, 12, 13 minutes. And then we've got, an hour and 15 minutes from there where you're the guest on, obviously, and we're having a dialogue. I didn't know if you had any particular favorite questions that you would like to have asked.
No, I like to go by the seat of my pants.
Yeah, that's fine. I typically do that on the show. And now, the thing that was confusing to me as I looked up material on you, but hang on one second.
Okay.
In case I want to write something down. I see obviously you're an author, you're a songwriter, and then you also do, it sounds like you almost do like psychic healings or something along that nature.
Yes.
And that's probably, obviously more relevant to what we typically cover in the show, but I'd be glad to, talk about your songs, and certainly maybe we can even possibly cue one up. I haven't even talked to the studio about that. Especially if there's a song that's kind of relevant, to that topic.
Yes.
Now, so tell me just a little bit, Tim, because we only have a few minutes before we go on, about, are you familiar with, say, Reiki healing and, what you do, anything like that?
It's very similar, except we can do it from any distance, and most of my clients are in America, and I'm in Japan. I have very few clients in Japan because I don't speak Japanese too well.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my clients come...
So if I said to you, us tomodachi, you would probably know that, though, right?
Not really.
Okay. That's hello, friend.
Oh, tomodachi. Okay, you said tomodachi. Okay.
I said, imanaji desu ka?
Oh, that's not... What time is it? Yes, I got that one.
Yeah, there you go. Chotomato kudasai.
Chotomate. Yeah, please wait a minute.
Yeah. So if I say that, okay. But if I say Doistara Wadata, I won't say that.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, and I used to have a couple of Japanese people who worked for me. We spoke Japanese to each other.
Oh, cool.
And I learned a bit. I get about 500 word vocabulary, but you can kind of work it around.
Yeah, I've been here 12 years. I'm learning, but it's they speak in 3 different languages. One language is to superiors, and one language is to people below them, and then one language is to normal people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. They have like us is one thing, but then if you're talking to somebody on the phone that's mushi anone, it's kind of a different kind of a way of saying hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I do understand to some extent. So just tell me a little bit about the spiritual healing.
So what I like to do is take some callers. I muscle test, and my muscle testing gives them any answer they want to know, and I work on different charts, and I have them all on my computer. So the charts can tell me exactly what is they need to work on right away, and I can do that within minutes.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about how that works from a scientific standpoint before I introduce you, and then I'll introduce you.
Cool.
And if you don't have any particular questions that you wanted me to ask you, then we'll just go from there. We'll wing it.
Yeah.
So,
I like to follow the energy.
Yeah, you'll be on my monologue. So, if there's anything in particular you want to, reference back to, that's fine. But I'll just be doing the talking.
I feel you'll be perfect, so I'll just send you energetic support.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I'm going to stay on, but I just have to grab one thing before the show starts. So,
Okay.
with the new, which is really a greater vibration, a finer vibration, a more powerful vibration of who you can be. And sometimes you can't even do that until you kind of eliminate, the status quo. And oftentimes the status quo is what's holding you back.
Are you back, Joe?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm going to put you hot and I'll roll in your open.
Okay. We actually construct activities. When we dream, we're in tune with the realm of the metaphysical. Well, good evening, folks, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where in this wide world of internet radio you are tuning into the show tonight. And of course, the show you're tuning into is Ordain Your Reality with your host, Dr. Joe Donlin, and welcome to tonight's show, and welcome all you listeners, you faithful listeners to the shows in the past. And we're always picking up new listeners, which is wonderful. And so I'd like to give you new listeners a somewhat of an appreciation for what the show is about. And let me just get right into that. Well, again, the show is called Ordain Your Reality. And what do we mean by ordain your reality? Well, the premise really of that is that we can demonstrably affect the outcome of future events by our attitude, by our positive thinking specifically, and certainly by intention. And there's some mechanics involved with that. Meditation usually comes into play. Prayer can come into play, visualization can come into play, and a number of other, techniques, if you will. And I've written a number of books on this subject. And by the way, I have a deep background in physics and in metaphysics. And a lot of the material that I've presented has been peer-reviewed by other physicists, other actually theoretical physicists as well as practical physicists. And so, and I've actually kind of gone maybe somewhat, some would call bleeding edge, but I would call it leading edge. And some of the stuff that might have been bleeding edge is now really almost accepted in the 7 or 8 years or 9 years of, producing a number of different books. And really the premise we have here that we're talking about is that we're now seeing a confluence between physics and metaphysics. And really what do I mean by each of those? Well, most of you understand what physics is all about. It's really a discipline that understands and tries to understand essentially all the forces of nature. And essentially it is something that deals with the 5 senses, sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. And
can you not talk so loud?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm picking up another
That's a caller from
noise there.
13. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
So sorry about that, folks.
I'm live. Sorry about that. I didn't realize.
Okay. So at any rate, sorry about that, folks. That's what happens on live radio. So at any rate, what physics deals with is essentially explaining things that we can perceive with our 5 senses, and what metaphysics explains is things that exist beyond our 5 senses. And a long time ago, 300 or 400 years ago, scientists, well, let's go back about 2,500 years ago, scientists believed that both realms were real. In other words, it was a realm of the physical and a realm of the, spiritual, if you will, or the metaphysical. And the Greeks actually coined that word, metaphysical. And later on, when science really developed much more, especially right after the Renaissance with all the discoveries, right up through Newton and after that, scientists began to get the idea that we didn't need metaphysics. We really had it all understood. We could explain everything, and it was really pretty redundant. And by the way, it seemed to be not something you can get your arms around, nothing you can really quantify. So therefore, it didn't really matter, and it really wasn't something that really should be taken seriously. Well, we'll come full cycle again. In fact, we're more strongly aligned between physics and metaphysics. And when we talk about metaphysics now, we enter into really some new territory. We enter into an explanation for things that we never could explain before within the laws of physics. And we're beginning to, encroach upon some of them into almost like this, into the brain of this, the brain being B-R-A-N-E, like membrane, not brain in our heads, although it is the brain in our heads that actually is doing the interpretation. And speaking of brains, we really have two hemispheres. One is our left hemisphere and one is our right hemisphere. And interestingly enough, physics, the discipline of Western physics, is very much in line with and very much the modality of thinking is along the lines of the left hemisphere. And interestingly enough, metaphysics is very much along the lines of the right hemisphere. So without getting into a whole explanation of brain anatomy and the different modalities of thinking, together the two of them, how we think, the right brain and left brain comes into play in all of the things we do. We have intuitions about things, but we also have a rational understanding about things. And so that's really what's happening in this world of science right now. And in fact, there's a large group of scientists made of an organization called SAN, which is Scientists Against Non-Duality. I'm a very active member in that organization. I've delivered papers in that organization. And its principal role is to kind of marry, if you would, physics and metaphysics. And the importance to the listener for that is that now we have explanations for things we didn't have explanations for before. And specifically, explanations for things that we would consider paranormal. And one of the things that we never could explain before was the notion of being able to ordain reality, meaning to be able to think about something and have it tangibly affect the outcome of a future event. Now, there's been so many cases about this, there's been so many anecdotal cases about this, that people suspected it for millennia. And there's many, many books about this. But we really never had the ability to explain tangibly how it works. And now we are going to be able to, we're explaining that more and more and more, and we're certainly getting closer and closer to a fundamental understanding. And along with ordaining reality, we really now opened up the door to many more things that are related, and many of them have to do with energy healing and being able to send out healing vibrations and healing energy, by the way, instantaneously connecting with others. And in fact, that's the topic of the show tonight, because our guest tonight, who by the way is calling in from Japan, and our guest tonight, by the way, is Tim Janikos, and Tim is he's many things actually. He's an award-winning inspirational singer-songwriter. He's also a visionary, and he's an author of both fiction and nonfiction books. And more to the subject tonight, he's a certified energy healer. Tim's a Native American. He's a Buddhist, which is not too surprising to be in that particular field, if you would, of energy healing. And so he's, as I mentioned, he's currently living and performing in northern Japan. And he also has his own show. He hosts a twice-a-week live energy healing radio show, and that's called From Time Without Beginning. You can call in, let him perform some real-time magic on you through that show, but you're also going to be able to do that on tonight's show. And so, as Tim would say, how does it get any better than that? So that's what we have for tonight's show, and I'm very happy because what we're able to do now is to take some of the things that we've learned in physics and metaphysics and put them into practical terms to actually do healing and what is more important really than good health. So Tim, sorry, and I'm getting some noise on the line here, but Tim, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good to have everyone here.
You sound nice and clear. You're coming in from Japan. And what part of Japan? You in northern Japan?
Yeah, the backside. It's next to Sato Island, which is a famous place where they used to exile people in the Shogun era.
Oh yes, wow. Well, hopefully you won't be exiled.
I call it my self-imposed exile. So
That's a nice part of the country. But at any rate, Tim, welcome again to the show. And I don't know if I left anything else, anything of particular, pertinent information on you out of that, but you can certainly add to that. And of course, obviously, I mentioned that you were a certified energy healer. And we've talked about that. We've had a number of different types of energy healers on the show. And they're really variations of themes. But when you say you're an energy healer, and I know you're very familiar with Reiki and probably also quantum healing and so forth and so on, can you define, maybe your, I guess, aspect, if you would, of energy healing, Tim?
yes. So the certification I have is called the Emotion Code. And the Emotion Code was started by Dr. Bradley Nelson. He was a craniopath and a chiropractor in Orange County, California, where I grew up. And he ended up, after 17 years or so, closing down his office because he had too many clients, and also because he decided he wanted to teach it to everybody. And now he teaches all over the world, and he does online classes. So I've actually never met him in person, and I actually lived right next to where his office was. I think I actually ran into him. I was a banker at the time. So I actually might have met him because I went to every single office in that neighborhood and gave my business cards and asked them to do personal banking with me. But I don't know I think I talked to him once before. But anyway.
Small world. You may have gotten some kind of a vibration from it at that point.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, when I was by his office is where I threw my back out in 1999. And I should have went to his chiropractic office. But at that time, I thought chiropractors were quacks. I don't know. I didn't really know much about chiropractic at the time. I thought a lot of the people who said they were energy healers were a little off base too, because I grew up Buddhist, and I thought everyone just needed to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I grew up all my life in the Soka Gakkai, which is one of the largest international Buddhist lay organizations. And after about 30-something years of being a Buddhist, I started having all these medical problems, and I couldn't explain them because I've been into health all my life. I started working out when I was 17. I went vegan for a long time. I used to eat all organic food. I used to totally take care of my health in every way possible. I studied herbs. But unexplainably, I started to have all these back problems. I started having itchy skin problems. I started having gas problems. And it's not the gas that you want to be around a person that has. And I had all these unexplainable
Good thing
things.
this is only radio, right?
Yeah, good thing that was then, and this is now. I don't have any of those problems. So
No.
I had to actually change my understanding of people that do metaphysical stuff, because as a Buddhist, there's a lot of Buddhists that are actually, in Buddhism we call it the threefold world, which in science and other things they talk about the duality of both physical and spiritual, but in Buddhism we call it a threefold world, and the first fold of that world is the appearance of life, which is the physical manifestation. The second fold is nature. It's the thinking and the emotions and the all the different things you feel inside that you can't explain. And then the third fold is entity, which is it's like what's beyond this reality, which is beyond all physical and all spiritual, is the true aspect of all reality, which we call your enlightened nature from time without beginning, which is kind of hard to explain in a short little while. But I do have a video on my YouTube page which is called Buddhist Dialogue with Science, and I've been reading a lot about science and how it relates to Eastern philosophical traditions for many years, and I wrote a lot of articles about that. And one of my 3 books that I published from my writings at Soka University of America was specifically working with what's the difference between the spiritual aspect of reality and the appearance and nature, the physical aspect of reality. But it took me a whole different. It took me getting really sick and then learning about energy medicine to realize how much we are beyond those two dualities. We are, I like to say we're hyperlocal and hypertemporal beings, which means hyperlocal means we're everywhere, And hypertemporal means we're every when, which means we are infinitely in the past and infinitely in the future, all existing in one nanosecond, or one thought, one reality, which is going on right now. So all of the people that think I'm in Japan and you're in America or wherever you're at, it's not really true, because I'm actually you and you are me. As I think it was the song "I Am the Walrus." I am he as you are me, and we are all together. We are all infinite beings from time without beginning, which I'm starting to fully come to awareness with overcoming all the medical problems that doctors couldn't fix. And then now I work with clients all over the world, and it's just so amazing that in a second I can figure out what's wrong with their body by just doing muscle testing, which is the main part of what the healing modality I use.
That's what we're going to do. And by the way, I mentioned a little bit on the on the opening monologue about the confluence of physics and metaphysics, and along with that, along with the non-belief of the metaphysical as being, a part of science and even legitimate science years ago that we've come full cycle on. Also, the notion of a supreme being or something more than we, if you will, that are out there in terms of this collective unconscious. Yeah. And one of the reasons that the scientists of the past felt that was not real, there were two major reasons. One is they could explain everything without that, which is no longer the case. We can no longer explain everything without that. And secondly, that the attributes, attributed to the supreme being or a supreme entity, which is probably more like it, violated the known laws of physics. So the scientists would say, well, how can something exist in the universe if it's violating the laws of the universe? And those laws are omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresence. Well, we go ahead and find out now that those are exactly the same attributes that you're talking about, and exactly the same attributes that we are now ascribing to consciousness. So what's kind of interesting is that which we thought couldn't exist is actually the most pervasive thing in the entire universe. And it's exactly as the Beatles song, stated. And it's just very interesting that science has now come full cycle on that. Not every scientist is on board with this, but that is the latest thinking, certainly from the latest folks that are involved with theoretical physics. So I just wanted to kind of, compliment you on that notion, and also kind of support that with, what is, I always call it semi-breaking news on the science front.
Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar with Professor or Dr. William Tiller. He's the Professor Emeritus of Physics at Stanford University. He's been doing research on the ability for people to change people's pH level on one side of the U.S. by just thinking about the people on the other side, and they use their pH of their saliva and their blood, and they instantly, these group of people in the East Coast, think about changing their pH, either going up 0.5% or down 0.5%, and they show it right away. If instantly.
Yeah. It is instantly, right?
Yeah,
on the speed of light reaction, exactly.
Yeah, so he says the speed of thought is the speed of light to the 8th power, which is the speed of light times the speed of light times the speed of light times the speed. You do that 8 times, and that's beyond anything we can even comprehend in a calculator. Mm-hmm. So right. Yeah, so the speed of thought is really, the speed of consciousness is beyond anything anyone can put in a computer and try to figure out.
Right. And by the way, we're also ascribing that same speed to gravity, which is kind of interesting. Wow. And I'm actually going to do a whole talk from the, on the whole discovery of gravity waves and what that means to all of us, and what it doesn't mean to some of the thoughts we have about gravity. But that exact same speed has been the speed of consciousness has been ascribed to the same speed for gravity.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, defies